Hello, welcome to How to Play Skyline 54, two-player edition. So, this game, you're going to be setting cards down on a baseline, and let's say you have an ace. Any card that's higher than an ace or lower than an ace can go on top, and depending on what you play, you might build an ascending or descending order. Or you could build a set of 4 or 3 or 2 of the same rank. But that somewhat prevents you from building on top of it because the maximum you get is 4. You can't build a different rank on top of a set. That being said, any card next to it must also be adjacent, either plus or minus 1. So in this case, that would be legal. And so too would this case be legal. But what you couldn't do is you couldn't then put a 3 on top of that 2. That would not be plus or minus 1 adjacent. Any card next to it could be a king or an ace, or you can lay a street if you don't have that. You can't float buildings in the middle of the air. That's not allowed. Nor can you build below the baseline. So now that we've established that, we're then going to move on to the concept of sideways movement. You can either be plus or minus 1 next to the building that you're constructing at the moment. Or you can build a street if you have nothing to play there. And then after the street, any rank of cards can go on. So your play options, you could either draw cards, you could play cards, and the third option is only really for the end of the game, you pass. So when you're drawing cards, if you draw from the draw pile, you're allowed to draw 2 blindly because they're face down, and then after that you refill each pile with 1 card. If you draw from the first pile, you can only take the bottom card, and then you add 1 to each pile. If you draw from the second pile, you add 1 to the third pile, and the third pile you just take the card, it does not get refilled. So there's a hard limit of 5 cards in hand. If you get more than 5 cards, you'll have to pick out the number of cards needed to get back down to 5 and discard them. There's also some mid-game achievements for a 2-player game. It's 7 cards, either high or wide. Once you do that, you can claim a joker. That gets you 5 points towards the end of the game. And you can't build on top of a joker after that. So the setup's pretty easily. We're going to deal 6 cards to the start player, 5 cards to the second player. So how you decide start player, that's up to you. The rules say that whoever lives in the tallest building goes first, but you go ahead and figure it out amongst yourselves. Now, after the card's been dealt, you look at all the cards and everything, and you decide what you want your first foundation card to be. After that, you then go to your steps of either drawing cards, building cards, or, well, you don't want to pass early. Just those 2 options. So you have to do one of those 2. And you can play as many cards as you have the ability to when you're stacking vertically. However, if you build a street, that's the only action you're allowed to do. If you draw a card, that's also the only action you're able to do. But when building, you can play multiple cards at once, if you have all of them. And so the game continues like that. People are seeing whether they have the cards needed to build a building next to the existing one they've constructed, or if they need to build a street, or if they'd rather draw cards. The nature of where you draw cards at affects the play for the next player because of the refill rules. So now we see North has more than 5 cards. He'll need to discard 2 before he begins his next turn. And so he does. So now we're at 5 cards exactly. He draws, and now he'll need to discard another one to get back down to 5. He's there. And so just turns alternate between players. They keep trying to build their buildings. They keep trying to draw more cards so they have the better cards in hand. And they're strategizing on what the best possible play is. By doing that, they can maximize the number of points. And of course, it's going to be the player with the most points wins. Now, we just saw South play a street, and he could have played any card as a base foundation after that street, which he has. The thing to remember is, by rule alone, if you build a tower in ascending order, let's say you build ace 2 3, the tower next to it will also have to be in ascending order, whether it starts with a king or a 2. So if you go king, it would be king ace 2. If you started with a 2, it would be 2 3 4, and so forth and so on. And that's just by the nature of the rules that every card adjacent to another card has to be plus or minus 1 in rank. And you can't build below the baseline. We've covered that. You can't build a card floating in midair. You have to first establish a tower. So that's what makes the challenge in this game. With the 2-player, it's pretty simple. With the 3-player, it's different rules. You have a different mid-game achievement point. With a 4-player, it's a different rule set, different mid-game achievement point. So whenever playing this game, definitely double-check the rules on those two, because those numbers are different. In a 2-player game, the first player to build 7 cards high or 7 cards wide uninterrupted, because the uninterrupted means you can't have any streets. If you're able to do 7 cards wide uninterrupted, you can claim the Joker that prevents you from building any further sideways. If you build 7 cards vertically, you could then claim a Joker that also prevents you from building further vertically. So now we see North play a street, and we're continuing the game. And we're getting pretty close to the end. Players are drawing cards. Now, when your draw pile runs out, the game recommends taking any of the discards and making that now the draw pile. So at some point when drawing cards from the stacks of blueprints, you're not going to be able to refill the other blueprint areas. And that's just the nature of the game, so you'll just keep going. That was ingenious. We saw a set of 4 on North, and then a pair of 5s get played next to it. That's perfectly legal. They're plus or minus 1 adjacent. Now we're seeing a street get built, and then we're going to see South continue to move, and North will put those queens down from the hand. And after that, they're going to draw a card, see if they have any other plays. They have that 5. They build that street's already built, and they have the queen. So now we'll see a pass from North eventually, and player 1 is going to have to continue. He grabs the first Joker after completing a stack of 7, and the North player puts that king down next to the queens. That's allowed. It's plus or minus 1, so he has his cards left in hand. Now player 1 grabs the last, or South player grabs the last of the cards and stacks them down. So now comes the scoring phase. Now we're done. No, there's no more moves available. Everybody's passed. And we're scoring 1 point for each card in our tallest 2 towers. And these are the score totals here. As you see, South has won 40-25. And as always, if you actually like to play this card game out in public, come to our subreddit, Card Game Meetups. And if you click under the show more in the description, you'll be shown all the pertinent links, including written instructions, the music, and other content creators, as well as the Card Game Meetups subreddit, and a link to a Discord channel where people discuss card games and all sorts of other things. Do check out Gather Together Games, one of my favorite game instructors out there, one of the best in the world. Hogwash Gaming has a lot of different games. Learn Tarot Card Games, the best source for learning tarot cards on the internet. Matthew Newman has some wonderful solitaire videos. Do check out Stellar Solitaire, which is software implementations of solitaires. Riffle, Shuffle, and Roll, you never know what he's going to do. Is he going to do a commercial game, a free game? You never know. Taylor's Trick-Taking Table is mostly commercial. Triple S Games, also commercial, free. And Veslako is mostly free print and plays. Wonderful channel, check it out. And she always wins mostly commercial games. Do check them out as well. And if you're interested in going on a vacation where you can actually play some cards, I do recommend Branson, Missouri. You see they have this wonderful junk store that sells all sorts of card games and board games, and then go right across the street to the Branson Board Game Cafe. Everything is organized and color-coded here. They have this whole system that shows you how easy a game is to get into, or if it's difficult, if it plays well with 1 or 2. Nice retail section, but you're mostly paying for the library of games. There's all sorts of games you could try out, learn, and they also have other people there. They have signs that say, hey, if you want players to come to your table, you could put that sign on your table. It is always a wonderful experience, and you could try Bahama Taxi there. So do check out the Branson Board Game Cafe, and do like and subscribe, and I will see you next video. And I wanted to thank today's musician, Mystery Fingerstyle Guitarist. Do check out his channel. A lot of great content, a lot of great music. And if you actually watch to the end of the video, please write in the comments what your favorite cheese is. See you next video.